Good morning, everyone. This is Shibata. Before I start, allow me to give you a quick update. It's the impact of the very recent earthquake. The impact was not large that we would have to change our guidance. So that is why we did not really launch any press release, but of course there had been some impact. Now, the impact for the first 2 quarters within our best estimate, probably we will find the similar impact between these 2 quarters. The size of the impact, again, is within the guidance that we introduced earlier. So therefore, Q1, unfortunately, we probably would not be able to say it's going to be like B for Q1 guidance. But then it doesn't mean that we will lag far behind our guidance for Q1. So that is our outlook. But of course, we do have to acknowledge that there still are various uncertainties, including how the COVID-19 pandemic would go. But again, that is how we see the impact of the earthquake as so far. Now, today in this Analyst Day, I'd like to make a brief progress update. So it's not like we'd be introducing new stories, new items. It's really about sharing with you what updates we have to the initiatives that we have been taking forth so that you will be able to better understand what we have been doing. Now, from that perspective, I do believe that a lot of you would look us as more auto side company, but then today, we hope to be able to proactively introduce our non-auto business. This is something that we've always wanted to do, and that's exactly why we would like to make sure that we spend more time in the infrastructure industry and IoT side of the business. We hope to be able to introduce you as much information as possible. So if you have any questions, please do make use of the Q&A session. Also, from the same perspective, we are going to have Mr. Yoshioka, our CTO, make a presentation so that you'd be able to have more diverse understanding of us in a more diverse manner. Now, in order to make sure we'd be able to leave enough time for Q&A in our business units, I hope I'd be able to quickly just go over my part so that I would not have to spend all of my allocated time. So with that, I'd like to start. First of all, allow me to recap 2020. I am sure you already are aware, but back in February, we introduced our strategy update. It was like a renewed strategy. And also in August, we also shared with you again our strategy update in the pandemic. Now, numbers, sometimes it might be too bullish, but on a non-GAAP basis, there were lots of things that happened, but we have been able to mark a record high EBIT margin. We were able to have a very good profit level. And also, even in terms of winning combos, in other words, our solution, we were able to introduce 102 winning combo case to the market. As for design in, we have been able to offer a lifetime value of 1,330 billion yen worth. And also we have been able to mark a very good stock performance as well. So we do believe we have been able to track the year very well. I'd also like to sort of backcast our activity as we look how we've been able to do towards the end of the year. And I'd like to backcast. But first of all, ESG initiatives. Nowadays, we hear a lot about ESG initiatives, including carbon neutral. Perhaps we hear it almost every day. We too, although we did sort of lag behind others. We were able to introduce our ESG initiatives. We were able to update our website so that we be able to offer our information on a more comprehensive manner. This initiatives, we will make sure we make progress. But of course, we will have to have a target so that we would be able to keep track of how much we've been able to do, and you'd also be able to keep up with what we have been able to do. And there are three, but I'd like to start with the first. But again, we want to make sure that we be included in the index that people will be looking at to assess the market, etc. And so these indices are these three. So FTSE as well as MSCI, the two indices. Now, of course, these index would be updated on a different timing. And if all goes well, we hope to be able to have all the three be able to include Renesas. And otherwise, we'd like to make sure we'd be able to achieve that during the first half of next year. Now, if we be able to have ourselves included, PFI and some of the large institutional investors would be able to look at us more as we be able to have ourselves exposed to this. And so Mr. Shinkai will be talking about this as well. But how people assess our share price, not just about our business, but share price, we do believe that our works here would be able to contribute. It's not just about putting forth ESG initiatives, but it's really also about disclosure. And within the sustainability organization, we are ranked in the very middle of the all corporate ranking. And we are ranked around 120. And this organization would be able to look at it high, middle, low risk. In other words, to be ranked in the middle means we would be seen as middle risk company, but we want to make sure that we be assessed as low rank. In other words, we want to go into like the top 20, 25 range instead of being in the 120, 125th range. Also, about carbon neutrality. The target of achieving carbon neutral by 2050. This is what the Japanese government has announced, and we've also set the same time frame. But then, I would not know if I would be alive by then. Maybe some of the participants today would not be. So I thought that would be too far away. So I thought, why not set a more near-term target? So this starts from 2020 to 2030. We will be looking at this 10 years to reduce the greenhouse gas by 25%. Now, compared to the benchmark 2013, this will be equivalent to 60% reduction. So this is going to be our near-term target in 2030. So how are we going to do that? Here is some icons. So first is about extending PFC. In other words, we be able to reduce greenhouse gas emission. But also in the middle, here's another icon. We also do want to reduce the energy consumption itself. We want to achieve more efficiency. And on the far right, you see another icon. It's about using renewables, for example, renewable power source. So these are the three activities we'd like to put forth to achieve 60% reduction of greenhouse gas versus 2013 and 25% versus 2020. And that's what we want to achieve by 2030. So that is our target, near-term target. So that's about ESG, carbon neutral, a very quick update on our initiatives in this regards. So from here, it's going to be the same backcasting activity, but in September, there's been a great promotion activity. In other words, it's about Renesas culture and how we want to streamline how we act, the code of conduct. The strategy itself is something that we've basically kept ever since what we announced back in August. It's only like half a year, so it's not like we'd be drastically changing our strategy itself. But in order to execute this strategy, we do have to make sure what we do in Renesas be able to find some changes and some progress. And one of the important pillars would be to make this execution is the Renesas culture. It starts with being transparent, agile, global, innovative, entrepreneurial. And of course, each of the words may not seem that new, but especially recently, we find some of the traditional industries where the players are feeling a sense of crisis that they have to change. And these industries are saying that these are exactly the elements that need to be put forth. And a lot of them would give us would encourage us, sometimes in a more stronger voice, that we do need to go for these 5 elements that you have that we show on the slide. In other words, we have to make sure that we put forth all these 5 elements in a tangible manner as soon as I can. So again, we already did show a roadmap called strategy, but we do have to have the contents. Otherwise, we will not be able to enjoy much achievement. Now, this February, we showed our starting point. In other words, we showed where we were with and we showed this to, we did a survey to our global 20,000 or so employees, including those who were in a factory, the manufacturing side. So to share with you the result, this is how it looks like. How many people think we are transparent? It seems like 67% of our people thought Renesas is pretty transparent. Are we agile? Can we make quick decisions? Then the proportion decreases. Only 59% said yes. Now, are we global? 71%. Innovative, entrepreneurial, similar, something under 60% was the result. It's the current snapshot. So the point is we have to make sure that we be able to increase the proportion of this yes, dark blue part. And we will make sure that we be able to keep track on how much we be able to do to improve the situation. Now, to be more transparent or to be more agile, that probably is it's probably going to be easier to make it happen compared to being innovative or being entrepreneurial. So that is why it is being ordered in this way. It's first the transparent, it's then the agile. So first of all, we're going to focus on how much more transparent, how much more agile we be able to have our people feel. And, excuse me. And also, in order to make our data have some significance, we now look at our, again, the same transparent and being agile per geography. And here we just look at our backend people, but you can see there is a clear difference between each region. China, you see very good figures, followed by APAC, like Vietnam or Malaysia. So these are the 2 geographies where we have good results, followed by Americas. And then comes in Japan as well as EMEA, or in essence, Europe. Needless to say, we do have to look at the nationality, characteristic of each people there. So that is one reason why there could be some difference between region, but how more can we be aware as Renesas? That's another question. But again, as we try to be a global company, we do have to make sure Japan and EMEA would also be able to mark a similar figure as we are finding in other regions as well. Especially, most of you today would be looking at what we basically are doing in Japan. So perhaps the Renesas that you currently feel versus Renesas in China, Renesas in Americas, or in other words, our customers in China, customers in America, how they perceive Renesas may be a bit different versus your perception of Renesas. And that could be a very good difference, but still, we want to make sure that Renesas will be very well known as very agile, very transparent company across the globe. And so we do want to make some changes to our characteristics in that sense.
So for the first two topics, I talked about ESG and culture. These are rather soft topics, and I was able to give you a progress update. From here, in a similar manner, in order to execute the strategy, I want to give you an update on the substance and the progress we have made. But from here, rather than staying on the soft topics, I want to talk on the more of the tangible topics, which is with regards to the supply chain and our efforts to enhance the supply chain. First, what you are looking at right now is our initiatives with respect to channel initiatives. And you are seeing our previous state of things. We have the Tokuyaku 10. We had 18 special agencies which covered the Japan market. And we have the rest of the world. Outside of Japan, we had 53 distributors to cover clients all across the globe. And that was the previous state. Over the past 1.5 years or so, or slightly less than 1.5 years, we have become a more lean structure. In terms of the number, we were to reduce the Tokuyakuten number from 53 to 37. That's for the rest of the world. And for Japan, we reduced from 18 to 8 distributors. But the substance of this is written on the right-hand side. So compared to before, with respect to our distribution partners, we feel we now have become able to share a more strategic agenda so that we face in the same direction. And therefore, for example, the areas where we are focusing on, such as the winning combinations or the analog mixed signal devices, acquiring deals and design ins, and looking at the traditional customer base, customers who more of a fulfillment centered logistics initiatives. For example, the margin that we pay now have a greater gap or greater difference. And also, as you can see here, the business flow has been more focused. So with a fewer number of business partners, we are now able to provide a larger sum of margin as a total. So for creating demand, we request that they invest in creating demand. We reach agreement with our distributors. Mostly field application engineers are taking the central part, but in order to acquire design ins, we ask that they make a strategic investment, and that comes with our business flow. And also at the bottom right, you can see it says rollout of S&D. This is a ship and debit. On the more global distributors, we first wholesale to these distributors at a price. And when the actual sale takes place between the distributor and the clients, depending on the substance of this deal, we give a discount. That is the commonly accepted practice globally. And this is to ensure payment of an appropriate margin to distribution partners. So this is the practice used called a ship and debit. However, traditionally, we have not implemented this practice. our pricing was set from the beginning with the assumption that sales would be made from the distributor to clients. But some of these things were rather vague and ambiguous in the past. So more so than we thought, we realized that in some cases we were paying more margin to these distributors. Of course, this is not good. We need to make arrangements to clarify what we are doing on both sides and reach agreement that incorporates that. In any case, with including the global distributors, we are starting to roll out this practice of S&D. And we plan to, within this year, roll out ship and debit to all distributors within this year. So with the channel structure becoming more lean, this presents a more economic rationale for us. And with the strategic engagement with these distributors, we hope to see a business expansion. And also with the rollout of S&D, the margin that we were able to capture would now become visible, and we'll be able to reduce the leakage of margin for us. So in any case, these are initiatives that we hope to achieve a win-win relationship with our distributors. And we are tracking our progress. And this is another initiative with respect to the supply chain. And here I'm talking about direct shipment. In the past, as you can see here, well, putting aside on the far right, we have the manufacturing companies and the headquarters. This is a bit unclear, so please ignore this part for now. Please take a look at the headquarters to overseas sales companies, for example. We have a warehouse and we deliver the products to the warehouse, and then products are shipped to customers. So this logistics had more touch points in the past. Of course, in line with that, between our sales company and the clients, there was this transaction of sales. So this required a lot of finance accounting processes as well. So we want to skip all of this and directly ship products from the headquarters. So goods, products, of course, but also business transaction will be done directly between us and clients. Overseas companies that were in between vis-a-vis the sales companies, they will have service fees and margin will be provided. So this streamlined the process. And as you can see on the right-hand side, the transactions themselves have become much simpler. And also this achieves efficiency in our logistics. This also leads to a cost reduction and savings. And on a more short term, supply is quite tight. So a shipment is on the rise. So this initiative may not produce the results we want in a short term, especially the logistics side, but in the longer term, we believe this will produce good impact. And Shinkai will later talk about this initiative when he talks about SG&A. And another initiative we are undertaking with respect to the supply chain is this. On the left-hand side, we have the build to forecast. Basically, this is manufacturing based on a forecast. On the other hand, we have products at the wafer level at the end of the front end, rather than completing as finished goods. We have die bank. Such products are stored in the die bank. And the process from after die bank follows BTO, which is build to order. This is our initiative to shift from BTF to die bank and BTO. And why we are doing this, you can see on the right-hand side. To begin with, the objective of this initiative is to achieve better supply and inventory management. Of course, we already have some of this out, but as a result of this, as you can see bottom right, for MCU lead time, which is a core product, it used to be 20 to 22 weeks, but from the client's perspective, lead times have been almost halved to 12 to 16 weeks. So this is the initiative, and also this accounts for about 42% of the total revenue, as you can see just above. We want to increase this proportion so that we will have better supply and inventory management. And together with the direct shipment initiative that I mentioned in the previous slide, I joined the Renesas in 2013, and these are all initiatives that I wanted to start in the company. I was raising my voice, but was unable to gather a necessary support. But at last, we were able to start these initiatives and have them implemented, and look forward to harvesting the fruit of this. And it comes as a set with this, but together with our efforts around the supply chain, I want to talk about the inventory side of this. From before, with respect to the inventory, rather than trying to reduce, I've been saying that we want to shift to an operation with some leeway. And here, these graphs are used to visually show this. The management environment keeps changing. So the target that I'm referencing here, whether it will stand 2 to 3 years from now, I'm not sure. But this is the kind of image that we have for our operation in a short term. First, please take a look at the left-hand side on the channel inventory. Right now, it has become very tight. In the second half of last year, it was a little over 8 weeks. And this level, we feel, is too tight. So the first half of this year, this tight situation continues. But after the first half of this year, we believe that the level should be above 10 weeks and to make sure that it transitions at a stable level. And the right-hand side, this is the inventory on our own balance sheet. The absolute level of this, looking at days of inventory, this is what we use to manage inventory. Right now, it's 90 or a little below 90 days. It has become quite tight. We feel it's too tight. So maybe 100 days or a little over 100 days of inventory compared to competitors would put us in a good position. It would still be tight, but as for the content or substance of this, as I explained in the previous slide, we are not trying to increase finished goods, but we are trying to increase the intermediary. Therefore, the impact in terms of the value amount will be controlled, but this will contribute to increasing convenience for the customers. And from here, I want to talk more about numbers and design-ins. First, overall for the company, I want to give progress update vis-a-vis our midterm targets. Perhaps you recall on the left-hand side, this is what we presented in February of last year. Revenue from our focus business, as well as margin from our focus business. And we said that we want to grow at SAM for the market that we are targeting, or above SAM. So for gross margin, 50%, operating margin, we wanted to increase this to a level above 20%. So these are target numbers that we set in February of last year. And as for the 2020 assessment, this is the second column from the left. This is the result for revenue. We were able to grow slightly above SAM. For margin, we were able to bring the numbers close to the target that we set. So for now, for these three indicators, all of them are on track and making progress. That is the updates that I want to give you today. So with that in mind, of course, more long-term, of course, to look at top line, design-ins are important, and this is shown in the second page. First, in August of last year, when I talked about this, I want to briefly recap. The far left column is the 2019 actual design-in amount. And in the middle, the dark blue is the design-in update that I presented in August of last year at that time. And the target that you see indicated by the arrow, that is the 4-year target. And compared to the target at the end of the close of last year, this was the result. First, on the automotive side, we were able to far exceed the target. For IIoT, we were able to also exceed the target slightly. So last year, the design-ins in total, if I talk about in the gross numbers, these results were excellent. So now I need to look at the substance, of course. And as for this year, this is shown in the gray bars. This is our target for this year. Compared to the target for last year, this shows a steady increase for this year, especially for automotive. The target is less than the actual from last year, but I feel that this is appropriate. This is what we want. Why? That's what I want to supplement using this slide. Looking at all of the design-ins from last year and dividing them by value per design-in, this is the breakdown by value. And at a glance, I think it's quite easy to understand. On the IIoT, each design-in is less than 100 oku yen. On the other hand, automotive, each design-in is above 10 oku. And of course, this is something that's nice, and I welcome that. But the billion plus design-in that I reported last year, there was one design-in. That's the one at the top for the automotive side. Overall, the number of design-ins for automotive and the number of design-ins for IIoT, there's about a 10 times a difference in terms of the number of design-ins. Therefore, a value amount for each design-in is different by 10 times or so. So what I'm trying to say here is that overall numbers are very pleasing and nice, but volatility has increased for automotive business. So whether we acquire a D-in or not, will greatly impact the 4-year design-in amount, whether it far exceeds or falls short of the target. So we will not be swayed by these design-ins on an individual basis. Please understand that such things do happen. What's more important for us is the quality of these design-ins, or the content and substance of these design-ins. So we have taken initiatives to increase the quality of design-ins. At the time, we were talking about more primitive quality, such as the profitability of each design-in or the design-ins that we acquire. These are basically our deals with tier 1 customers. And for automotive, it's 2 steps, whether we will be able to get to business with the OEMs. So those are the 2 concerns that we had, and our efforts are centered on improving in these 2 aspects. But the quality of design-ins that I'm talking about today is more looking at the entire mix or ways to reduce volatility. Therefore, here, customer mix should be more diversified, and also the content of those design-ins. Right now, it's SoC, high computing devices are leading design-ins, but we want to shift early to analog and winning combo, so that overall the design-in portfolio becomes more well-balanced. And for automotive, That will be our focus for the time being. So again, the design-in's amount may increase or decrease, but please do not pay much attention to that difference in the amount and how it fluctuates. We'll be focusing on the quality for the time being. The IIoT side is more and well balanced. I will touch upon this later, but the ARM-based microcontrollers, MPUs, this heart and soul, these computer devices and new product design-ins, and to what extent we'll have launches of these new product design-ins. But overall portfolio is well balanced.
Now, from here, I'd like to talk a bit more about IDT synergy. But at the moment, we are making very good progress. So I'm not going to use too much time to explain about this. And that's why this IDT synergy part has been placed at the very latter, more in the latter half of my presentation. But again, we are making very good progress. Any synergy around design in or capturing customers, I think we're making good progress here as well. For example, design in for winning combos, we have been able to achieve more than a 10 billion amount, 100 billion amount. And you can ask me more questions about this, but we're doing very well. So I will be just going quickly over these slides. But what about the contents of the winning combos? So here's the breakdown by product on the left-hand side. And so about 40% is digital, more than 60% is analog. And if you try to look at this by region, that's on the right-hand side. So now we're seeing a very good balance between each region. Now, one thing I'd like to highlight, the automotive winning combo has actually made the Japan proportion larger. But if we exclude that, actually the mix is much better by region now. So again, this geopolitical landscape, at the moment, anything can happen. There's a lot of things going on. So we don't want to over rely on one region. We want to make sure we have a very good balanced business overall by region. And that makes us strong to any radical changes. We'd be able to overcome any events that may happen. That's what we want to do. So at the moment, we are very much on track. So from here, it's going to be about automotive and IIoT. How are we going to win? So here, I'd like to give you a very quick update on our progress thus far. Now, of course, you will be hearing more about the automotive business unit. And today, we have also made sure that we spend enough time from IIoT business unit, and you will be hearing more from them in these presentations. So I'm just going to be making a quick introduction of what they'd be saying. And if you have any questions here, please ask our leads in each business unit. So again, this is the slide that I showed you last August, exactly the same thing. So for the computing device, it's really about scalability. That's what we're going to be focusing on. And otherwise, it's going to be winning combos. So what have we been able to accomplish this far? For example, this ADAS compute. This is something that we already made a press release. So again, it's the very state-of-art VC, this 60 TOPS, best-in-class ADAS. We've been able to go into a sample shipment of the chip. But what's more important, I think Mr. Kataoka will be able to share with you, but it's really about tool and software, the enrichment of the offerings we have here. Now, if I dare say, by making sure we have very fulfilling offerings here, we'd be able to enhance the hardwares that we offer so that our clients be able to look at this in a more general purpose. What I'm trying to say is we want to ultimately have the customer say, maybe it doesn't even have to be Renesas. Now, what does that mean? That enables us to find more opportunities for growth. Our semiconductor device probably would be more required when we be able to achieve to that extent. So again, tool and software, we want to make sure we be able to have a more enriching, enhanced offerings. And also on the right-hand side, these are the winning combos on the ADAS. Now we find this front camera solution. You find this on many cars now. So it's ready to use solution that we collaborate with Lupa. So we're very much looking forward to what more we'd be able to do here. And also anything around EVs. For example, IGBT, battery management, IC, design in. We are finding growth of these in China and also India, and we're able to obtain traction there. And we're very much looking forward here as well. And also in the middle, there's this winning combo. This is what we were able to obtain directly from Chinese OEM, but it's for EV. It's a solution with the gate driver within the set. And so we're going to be offering something like these. And also, we do believe we'd also be able to do more on the 300 millimeter IGBT. We are going to be doing this on a full-fledged scale. Also on the right-hand side, now in EV, ADAS, both would be looking into sensing, and one is about this LiDAR development. We are making progress on track. Also, this is something that we've been saying from last year, and finally, a bit later than what we initially thought, we've been able to announce this in this January, our position sensor. So for example, resolver scheme, that's not going to be used this time. So it's non-contact type, and it gives you better, well, liberty or flexibility in the design. So that's the position sensor that we've been able to launch to the market. It's already capturing interest from many organizations, many companies, and so we finally have been able to introduce this. So from here, again, it's going to be just a quick review or update on IoT. Now, this slide, again, is something that I shared with you last August. Exactly the same thing, no major change for this slide.
In August of last year, I also talked about the MPU topic. And here, using MPU, these are the new products and winning combos that we were able to launch, introduced on the right-hand side, 64-bit. We have the ARM Cortex A55. Using this, we have the something that is more appropriate for AI. This MPU family is something we have expanded, and also robotics is expected to further increase going forward. So to address this, we have the RZT to achieve real-time performance. So this device family has also been expanded. And bottom right, what I mentioned in the beginning, the RZ, this is the entry class family, focusing on graphics. Using this kind of MPU, this is very small, just the size of a business card. This is a board solution that is offered. This is something clients and customers can directly use in their products. So for the industrial and IoT fields going forward, we believe these initiatives will contribute to expanding our sales. And next, what I've just talked about in relation to MPU, this is what we have. We have been saying that our forte is also HMI. In today's slide, this is showing that it's scalable from points, lines, and planes. We are now approaching planes. So the slide is to show you that. To begin with, our strength lies in the touch area. In addition, we have gesture, and as I mentioned in the summer of last year, we have the voice user interface, and the graphic has also been one of our strengths. And I talked about increase by 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times. So we have the vision and the AI solution. As you can see, from microcontroller to MPU, all of this is connected and scalable. And we have the solutions are mostly software centered, also connected. And from here, through winning combos, analog devices, sensor devices will also be introduced. So HMI solutions will be further enhanced and become even easier to use compared to before. And on the infrastructure in IoT, the story has not changed much. On the topic of 5G, because of Huawei and trade confliction, there has been some impact. Our Chinese large clients in China are now struggling. So overall for 5G, we do not see the markets are growing so rapidly, but the 5G that we supply to is growing steadily. Later, Saidish will talk about this, but especially the ORAN area is gaining traction. And further beyond, we have other technologies which will be adopted. The timeline has been become longer than anticipated, but the future is still bright. The data centers are also doing well, especially the topic of DDR5. Later, Silas will give you an update on this, so please hear that portion. But the power management in data centers, we are now seeing a significant share gain for us. The areas of responsibility, the departments that are in charge of this business are very happy about the growth in this area. And on the right-hand side, IoT, RA family, we will have launches one after another. The RL78 family, we are now renewing the records of design-ins every 6 months. 5G module development with Sequans is also making good progress. So right now, we do not have any bad news or bad updates. So that was the update on of our progress from my side. And here, with all of this in mind, looking ahead, how do we steer going ahead in terms of strategy? This is just a brief introduction. Again, I repeat myself, but the strategy is not something that changes course every 6 months. So I do not anticipate any big change to it. But what we are going to place more importance on is this. I mentioned this in February of last year, which is to make our lives easier. And all initiatives that will achieve this will gain more focus going forward. So what am I saying? One example I want to talk about is this. In the past, Renesas was mostly a company centered on hardware, which is indicated by the illustration on the left-hand side. And over the past several years, it's been said that software is more important. So maybe some analysts today are looking to hear about our strategy around software. In any case, much more attention is now directed to the software side. But when we say software, of course, it usually means programs or codes, as you see here. But depending on the context, it's more talking about service. I think increasingly it's now being talked about as a service. So to make our lives easier, I believe these two things here are important. One is to augment and enhance the programs. This is to have better tools. I mentioned this when I talked about the automotive business. This is quite important. So of course, I will be working on this. On the other hand, As Renesas, this has been pointed out from before. What is Renesas doing? Is it serving a more professional companies that difficult to use? These are some comments that were commonly said about Renesas even before I joined the company. So we want to enhance this area and to address ease of use. And this can be done from various aspects, from applications. Winning combos certainly is one good example. And also, we revamped our website. I understand you're all very busy, but if you have time, please do visit and take a look at our website. On the website, or on the web, we already have something that enables you to do experiments. So increasing ease of use is something we are now working on a more full scale. And all of this comprehensively, we, as well as customers and end users, we want to make the lives important. Of course, I am not. It is not my intention uh, to to say hardware is not important. Hardware is important, but as we see increase in the complexity of a hardware, even if we make efforts, if we have something that is not easy to use for customers, it will be a waste. So we also want to enhance what's on the right hand side. And later, Shinkai and Yoshioka will talk respectively in their own parts. But as a company, we set 4 core technologies of Renesas. And this is more focusing on the ease of use that I mentioned in the previous slide. So quantum computing or silicon computing or compounds. What do we do about that? These are not some perspectives that are covered here. Of course, to reiterate, these things are also important, but Renesas today, Renesas at this point in time, what we need to focus on more so than these are what's written here. So with that context, we set these 4 core technologies. So if you keep this in mind as you listen to Yoshioka's part, I believe it will be helpful. So that's all from me. So just quickly, I want to give you a summary. What's written on the left-hand side, nothing has changed from last August with respect to our position of the portfolio. It's well positioned. We are able to address high growth markets. And the starting point, the signs of this have already started to emerge. And more so, we want to put emphasis on delivering results. So these on the left-hand side have not changed. So where are we today? How are we doing? With respect to this year compared to last year, we will increase R&D spend by a double digit. We expect the top line this year to increase. However, the operating margin would not explode. It would steadily increase, but we'll also be making more active investments in R&D. And the focus verticals, as I mentioned before, they are growing nicely. So all in all, everything is progressing as planned. Sorry, I meant to say making progress. It says making progressing, but apology for the typo. So this is the overall progress update. Strategy remains unchanged, but focus is more on the ease of use and service. And more than anything, we are now working and focusing on changing ourselves, our constitution, to enable that. So that's all the update from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'd like to open the floor for Q&A in regards to corporate strategy. Allow me to explain how you can ask your question. If you have a question, please click the hand raising icon. I will call you one by one, your name and company name. And if I call you, you are allowed to speak, and please unmute yourself before asking your question. Due to time constraint, today we'd like to limit to 2 questions per person. With that, we'd like to start the Q&A session. If you have a question, please use the raise hand icon. First, from UBS Securities, Yassi. Mr. Yassi, please, you can unmute yourself now. This is Yassi from UBS Securities. Thank you. I do have 2 questions. Thank you very much for presenting your midterm plan. It was really easy to understand. Now, first of all, it's not exactly about the presentation, but are you thinking of increasing your production capacity? Because there are a lot of there's a lot of companies doing that, be it on the front end or back end. We're seeing tight supply. And we do believe this tight supply in terms of capacity will just remain as a risk. So how you're taking that within your strategy? Do you plan to increase your own capacity? And also, we did hear that IDT integration is going well. But then, what do you think was the key factor for a successful IDT integration? And for example, you are going to be acquiring Dialog Semiconductor. And we're hoping that, I am hoping that you'd also be able to enjoy another very good synergy. So that's why I am asking. Thank you very much for your question. Your first question. Now, what we want to do in the short term is something that we've already introduced. But then part of the products that we asked on TSMC, we hope to be able to put them back in our 300 millimeter factory, the production site that we have. That means we are going to be organically producing more. And in that sense, yes, there is going to be an increase in our production capacity. But then I think this is something that we did discuss in a previous earnings call. If you look at our total fab capacity, there's some more room for growth, fortunately or unfortunately. So it doesn't mean that we have to spend a large capex or increase shell in that sense to increase the capacity in physical means. We do not feel the necessity at this moment. Where the constraints are in the supply is really in the back end, but I think more than that, we're seeing a lot of constraints in the front end portion. At the same time, we're seeing tight supply of the materials. And it's not just about our production site. If you don't have enough materials, it's no use for anyone to just simply increase their production capacity. So it's not something simple like increasing the production capacity. It's something that we'd like to do so that we be able to foresee what could happen. So in other words, we want to collaborate with the supplier and the clients as we try to pursue how we be able to deal with this tight supply. Foundry, OSAT, we are regularly having the top leaders conversation so that we be able to overcome this supply issue. Now, as for your second question, IDT integration being successful. So, of course, Saliush will be speaking later on. Now, I guess the largest factor is in the end it's really about how to assign each people. And of course, what's important was the contribution from people from IDT, including Saliush. But of course, that alone would not be enough. The receiving company, in other words, Renesas side, have to be prepared. But then Mr. Maoka, Kataoka, Mr. Shinkai, Mr. Yoshioka, all the members from Renesas side, the former Renesas side, I think are a bit different from the classic Japanese companies. We were able to really assign very talented and flexible-minded people for each position. So I will say that this integration was without stress. Of course, maybe there are some people who's feeling some stress. You'd have to ask each people. Maybe it's just that I don't know. But it's only the time difference that we'd feel some stress. No other stress. So members from Intrasil and IDT, there are a lot of great contribution. But then one thing that I think is different from this uh, Renesas, the members in the former Intrasil or IDT are the people who whose career was not just from Intrasil, not just within IDT. They were able to have a lot of experience in other areas in the semiconductor or the industry. So in other words, these people from Intrasil and IDT would be able to input the members in the Renaissance other ideas. They'd be able to show other case studies, which we had not known, even though we would have, like, for example, 20 years of experience. And so that gives us lots of learnings. And that enables us to really find new approach. For example, what we want to do with the supply chain is exactly one good example. Because previously, even if you had a good idea, nobody would want to support you if it's not a classic idea, but that's different. So once you start something new, there's a lot of new initiatives that we find it was good. We should have done it earlier. So again, that tells the importance of being really proactive in trying something new, and we are able to do that. I feel that the most with engineers and analog side. So again, these type of works is something that we want to proactively do with the members from Dialog Semiconductor, and I'm sure we'd be able to enjoy another great integration. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. The second person from BA OA, Hirakawa-san. Yes, BOFA, Hirakawa speaking. Can you hear me? Yes. I have two questions. First one, in your explanation today, you talked about enhancing the software side. My understanding is still not clear. So here is my question. So for enhancing the service side or the software side, I understand that you will be putting more focus on solutions provision. At the same time, you'll be working to standardize a platform. So for semiconductor devices, I think there will be a greater demand for semiconductor devices. So how will Renesas be? Where will Renesas be at that time? If you can talk more about this to help me understand, I'd appreciate it. That's the first question. And the second question is this. You talked about your efforts to reform the supply chain systematically and your initiatives around this. I think I have a good understanding in general, but we are now seeing semiconductor supply very tight. And at some point in time, you'll have to make a decision and determine what you will do about this tight supply. And there is also a risk of inventory related issue that we experienced in the past in 2018. So if you have any measures that you are implementing to minimize this risk, please share. Thank you. Yes, thank you for the questions. The first one, what we are going to do will partly be covered by Kataoka and Stylish presentations, but roughly speaking, in the world of mobile phones, it has become a software centric. Developers once the samples of the cases or the chassis of the smartphones are developed. That's not when the engineers start developing. They first start with the developing, and they have the board, the codes, the lines of codes already incorporated, I think, for most of them. So if that is the case, uh, is it okay not to care about the semiconductor? Can we do without the semiconductors? But in reality, for smartphone application processors to be provided, how many semiconductor companies can provide this product? If we look around the world, it's the same players. There are some latecomers who came and left. Um, um, so regardless whether it's for automotive or for industrial, I think the same thing will happen. The reason for that is, I think, is very simple. I think the emulation or simulation environment or the software development tools uh, should be enhanced and best enhanced than competitors. And if we enable clients to use these tools, this leads to us understanding where the clients are headed, where their focus is, where they are pinpointing on. I think such information will come to us earlier than others. So with such information at the basis, I think it becomes important that we offer something that is slightly better than others or something that's faster than others. When we talk about technology, people expect things like a quantum leap, something that explosively increases or something, but such things will not be used right away. If it's vertical integration, then perhaps it's usable, but in our business vis-a-vis customers, such things will not be um, meaningful. Rather than these things, we need to provide something that is slightly better than what our competitors offer. So that's where we need to head and go. And in the end, this will lead to our customers and ourselves be happy. And that is exactly happening in the world of smartphones, I think. On the second point, I do understand your concern, but the first thing I want to say is that I feel that it's better that we have more inventory. So please do not take this as a negative thing that will have increased the level of inventory. Right now, we have too few inventory, too less. And as for the management of this, our ways of managing an inventory have become more sophisticated compared to before. I want to give you some examples. I talked about a die bank in my presentation earlier. By increasing dies, this leads to a controlled value impact, even if semiconductors increase. I talked about RL 78, 16 bits in the IIoT, the cost basis. Each chip, if we keep it at the die level, the cost is only one third of if we were to bring this to a finished product. So that means even if we have 3 times more inventory, the value of it remains unchanged from before. And the backend is only 2 to 3 weeks. With the supply crunch that we are seeing today, maybe a bit longer, but that's the general timeline. So by having more die, we can enhance our inventory while controlling the value impact. That is one thing. And for IIoT and automotive, it's the same, but the long order lead time is now it has now become more common, as you've seen in the media. If only having a longer forecast, a long tail forecast would be difficult for us. It's only forecast, but orders and lead time have become much longer. We are making initiatives, taking initiatives and making efforts to have a longer lead time. So this allows us to fix farther out in the future. So this will avoid a situation where we have a production and high level of inventory, and in the end, customers do not place orders. So we have a more sophisticated ways of managing inventory, and we have a more predictability of inventory. I hope this will eliminate your concern.
Thank you very much. I know many other people are using the raise hand icon, but due to time schedule, we'd like to move ahead.